I've been really looking forward to this shoe. I finally got my hands on a pair of Saucony's Endorphin Speed 3. And I was really looking forward to this shoe because I really like the Endorphin Speed 2. In fact, last year that was one of the shoes that I put the most miles in. I think I had 350 miles in the Speed 2. So you better believe I was looking forward to getting the Speed 3 and I haven't been disappointed. So we're going to be talking about it. So let's get into it. First things first, the Endorphin Speed 3 will cost you $170 or $169.95 at Roadrunner Sports. And of course, I will place a link to that in the show notes below. And full disclosure, the Endorphin Speed 3 was sent to me for the purpose of review. However, no one's going to get a chance to see this video before you do on YouTube. Okay, so we know that the Endorphin Speed 3 is a lightweight performance trainer. Now, it has put on a little bit of weight, just a little bit from the Speed 2, but when it was on foot, I couldn't notice the difference between the 2 and the 3. The difference really is that small. Anyway, Saucony claims that a US men's size 9 tips the scale at 8.1 ounces or 229 grams. However, in my size, a US men's size 13, this shoe weighs in at 9.8 ounces or 278 grams. So pretty light. For me, this is a pretty light shoe and it feels light on my foot. But we're gonna go over some more of the specs, then I'll tell you about the ride. But let's just continue with weight for one more second because it has still been a bit warm here in Florida. And when I'm going out, I am breaking a sweat and I am coming home and my shoes are wet. And when I came back from one of my runs where I picked up the pace a little bit, Speed 3 had put on some weight. After one of my runs, the shoe increased its weight to 10.8 ounces or 307 grams. And I know you guys are trying to figure it out in your head, but that's a 10.43% increase in weight, which really isn't bad. And guys, we can't really compare this to other shoes that I tell you about that gain weight after I sweat in them a lot because the conditions are not consistent. Sometimes I'll go out for a tempo run and put it on the scale. Sometimes it'll be intervals. Sometimes it'll be an easy run. And just because the temperature and the humidity are so high, it just makes this shoe put on a few grams. Anyway, a 10.43% increase isn't too shabby. Speed 3 has 36 millimeters in the heel, 28 millimeters in the forefoot for an 8 millimeter drop. For me, that's about my sweet spot. I really like an 8 millimeter drop. Like most of Saucony's shoes, these are vegan and they're made with recycled materials. It is a neutral trainer, and for me, it does fit true to size. Okay, let's start at the top. Let's work our way down. I said it before when I've been comparing other Saucony shoes, but this heel collar is very Saucony. Like the difference between a daily trainer and a performance shoe are not very big. So even though there isn't much of a heel collar, there is enough padding around the top of the heel collar to make it very comfortable on my foot. The heel counter is semi-rigid, I'd say. Like you can see me pushing it down here. Yeah, it's semi-rigid. It's not rock solid, but in fact, I've got nothing bad to say about it. Most of Saucony's shoes, especially the Endorphin line, seem to fit my foot very well. Now, the upper is a lightweight, breathable mesh, and Saucony says it has a form-fit design, and it hugs every part of your foot. And yes, I would agree with that marketing hype. The shoe does have almost a race-like fit, where the upper is snug against your foot around your toe box. However, the upper does have a little bit of stretch in it, and I found that the toe box felt pretty roomy. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds. Oh, and what do you think of this colorway? Of course, this isn't the only colorway, but this is the one that was sent to me, and I'm actually a fan. The blue midsole and the blue upper just look sharp. Although I have had a lot of people comment on Instagram that they don't like this colorway. What do you think? Drop a comment. Are you a fan of the blue on blue? Now, the upper does have very minimal overlays. You can see we have a little bit of plastic here on the back, a little bit of an overlay right here on the side, along the eyelet chain, just to give it a little more support, and then right along the toe. So really, these overlays aren't providing too much support to the upper, but the upper is rigid enough to just hold its shape at all times. You know, some of these race shoes, they kind of sink down into themselves because the upper is so thin. Not so with this. But it's also important to remember that this is ultimately a training shoe, but we'll talk more about that in just a second. The laces are nice. I really don't have anything more to say about them than that. I was able to tie them. They didn't come untied. I was able to get a good lockdown across my midfoot, and the laces didn't bite into the top of my foot, which isn't really something to do with the laces, it's more to do with the tongue stopping that from happening. Speaking of the tongue, we have a very thin, although not racing thin tongue, and the tongue is gusseted, and all in all, it's really just a lovely tongue. Every time I see a tongue that I'm really pleased with, like the thickness, the way it wraps around my foot, makes me think about these daily trainers that have the super thick tongues, and I just wonder, is it really necessary to have that? But with the Endorphin Speed 3, no, you don't need that. This tongue is minimal, and it understands its assignment. Keeps my foot in place, stops the laces from biting the top of my foot. Okay, let's come down to the midsole, because the midsole is what it's all about. The Endorphin Speed 3 is using Power Run PB, and that is Saucony's top of the line PVA based foam. It is super light, it is super responsive, it is a real treat to run in. Now, sandwiched in between this Power Run PB midsole is an S-curved winged nylon plate, and I've got a pen right here because we see this little black part right here, and on the lateral side we have a little bigger, and if I just tap it, You can hear that that's the nylon plate inside. And if you missed it, I did say that it was winged, and it's winged to give a little more support. But hold on, we're almost onto the ride. Let's just briefly talk about the outsole. Saucony is using their XT900 rubber on their outsole, and you can see on my colorway, the yellow makes the outsole rubber stand out perfectly, and there is plenty of it, although not too much to increase the weight. I am seeing a little bit of wear on my lateral heel, but that's normal for me. When I'm running at slower paces, I tend to heel strike, and that's where I hit the ground first. And then there is minimal wear on my forefoot, but just looking at the wear that I've got on this shoe, this is definitely going to be another 350-mile shoe for me. Now let's talk about the ride, because this is what I've been looking forward to telling you guys about, because the Speed 3 rides like a treat. Now Saucony is using their speed roll technology, which is just their geometry, and you do feel it when you're running. You do feel yourself roll through your gait cycle. But something that has improved over the 2 to the 3 is the softness of the Power Run PB foam. And the softness is what makes this shoe a lot more versatile. Now, if you have run in the Speed 2, you probably think, Matt, that is a pretty versatile shoe. And until I ran in the Speed 3, I would have agreed with you. And I would go out in the Speed 2 and I would run easy and I would run fast, although running fast always felt better. Well, the same thing holds with the Speed 3, except when you're running at slower paces, it is remarkably more comfortable. And it's that comfort at slower paces that really increases the value of the Speed 3 for me. Now, don't get me wrong, this is a performance trainer. This is a race day shoe if you want it to be. And if you did choose this as your race day shoe, you would not be disappointed. You would run very fast. But if you want one shoe to do more than just one thing, Speed 3 is definitely something to consider. Now, the midsole geometry does make the shoe feel good at slow paces and fast paces. And I've said this before about other shoes, and it holds true for the Speed 3, but this shoe really comes alive when you pick up the pace. Even more so than the Speed 2, in my opinion. The Speed 3, when you pick up the pace, feels more like a super shoe. I think that has more to do with the foam than the nylon plate, because inherently a nylon plate is not as stiff as a carbon plate, and that's where the difference is. So when you run in a carbon plated shoe, you can get a little carbon plate fatigue because of that rigidity, and that's something that is lowered significantly when you're running with a nylon plate. But still, when you start getting up on your toes, when you start picking up the pace, I was really feeling the pop come from this shoe, and it was almost surprising. And again, I do think that is more to do with the midsole than the nylon plate, but you really can't have one without the other. That Power Run PB needs a little support to hold it together, to make it pop. So I think the Power Run PB and the nylon plate are more than the sum of their parts, and they come together beautifully. And the Speed 3 is a little wider in the forefoot and in the heel than the Speed 2, and that little extra wideness, along with the wings on the nylon plate, just contribute to a very stable ride. And every time I have run in this shoe, it has left me feeling like I wanted to run more, and I wanted to run faster. And that, I think, is pretty high praise coming from me. A shoe that makes me want to run faster is a shoe that I want to run in a lot. And I can already tell that this is going to be one of the shoes that I will do a long-term review on. I like it that much. It's almost like the Power Run PB foam is super bouncy, but when you pick up the pace, the bounciness increases as the pace goes up. I don't know. I can't explain it. It's just a super comfortable shoe. And if you want to save $50 over buying the Endorphin Pro 3, I think this is really going to hit the spot for a lot of people. It's a good trainer and it's a good racer. All right guys, thanks for staying all the way to the end of this video. Hey listen, if you have stayed till the end of this video, why don't you go ahead and put the balloon emoji in the comments, just so I know that you have stayed this long. My name's Matt, this is my review of Saucony's Endorphin Speed 3. Be kind, be happy, run well. I'll see you in a couple of days.